This episode of Nerdist News is sponsored by Borderlands 3. The Avengers writers reveal everything that got snapped out of Infinity War and Endgame. We're here at the Borderlands 3 Museum of Mayhem, and we're breaking down that Avengers Endgame writers panel at the finale of Avengers Endgame, when Tony Stark booted up his own Infinity Gauntlet and reminded the entire world that he was, in fact, Iron Man one last time. Order was restored to the MCU. Everything that Thanos snapped out of existence 5 years prior was blipped back in a heroic act of self-sacrifice. Or so we thought. Because this week we learned that there was so much more torn out of the Infinity Saga than we could have ever imagined. And it was done by the only people in the MCU with more power than Thanos, the writers. Christopher Markus and Stephen McFeely, the scribes who began their relationship with Marvel nearly a decade ago with Captain America: The First Avenger, blipped themselves onto the Hall H stage at Comic-Con on Friday to discuss what it was like to tackle the two biggest superhero movies of all time and write a fitting conclusion to 11 years of filmmaking. In the process, they revealed a lot of what goes into the secret sauce of Marvel storytelling, as well as a lot of what doesn't go in. Markus said that when it comes to writing, Marvel is not a panic-based company. That means writers are granted the trust and the freedom to explore ideas they like and also get rid of those at any point if they don't seem to be working. And when they say at any point, they really mean at any point. One of the most surprising revelations of things that were cut from the two movies was that Professor Hulk, or Smart Hulk, was actually supposed to make his first appearance at the end of Infinity War. In the original script, Bruce Banner finally overcomes his mental wrestling match with the Hulk on the Wakanda battlefield and triumphantly explodes out of the Hulkbuster as the Professor Hulk hybrid to kick Cull Obsidian's ass. But that scene wasn't just written, it was actually filmed. Remember that early trailer for Infinity War that showed Hulk charging into action with the rest of the Avengers? It appears that wasn't the studio planning fake footage. It was actually supposed to be in the film at that point. But eventually everyone decided that it threw the pace way off. As Markus explained, it was completely the wrong tone for that moment in the movie. It was this moment of victory while we were headed toward defeat. So, at the last second, the script was rewritten and reshot with Banner in the Hulkbuster suit, and Professor Hulk's intro was saved for Endgame. But that was just the tip of the iceberg when it came to some of the crazy stuff that we came really close to seeing in the Infinity Saga. At one point, producer Kevin Feige got really into the idea of putting some of the more psychedelic elements of the Marvel Cosmic Universe into the film. In one version, as Thanos and Doctor Strange came to blows, Markus explained Doctor Strange blew Thanos' mind and sent him through the Mindscape. This ended with Thanos at the feet of the Living Tribunal, a cosmic entity from Marvel Comics who is a three-faced judge of all realities and helps maintain order across the multiverse. Eventually they cut it, probably because it was a little too bonkers for the story they were telling, but it does sound like it would be fun if you were watching it under the right influence. However, not as much fun would have been the much darker version of Endgame that the writers toyed with. Apparently, there was even more time travel shenanigans in the script at one point, but it didn't exactly result in more Back to the Future type hijinks. Instead, there was a scene where Thanos returns to the present timeline with 2012's Captain America's severed head in his hand, as proof that the Avengers standing up to him is ultimately futile. Pretty quickly, it was decided that the scene was too morbidly dark and audiences weren't subjected to the sight of America's ass losing his head. Thor's journey in Infinity War was also a bit different. The idea that he needed to get Stormbreaker was always in place, but originally he was going to have to fight a giant serpent to get it. But eventually McFeely and Markus decided they wanted something a bit more character-based and a bit less Chamber of Secrets, which we're happy about because that decision is what probably eventually led to one of the most greatest team-ups in the MCU, Thor and Rocket. Of course, it's not just big ideas that end up in the trash bin. Sometimes little ideas are lost too, like a scene where all the missing Avengers eat pizza together after getting snapped back into existence. Sounds like they were trying to get back a little of that shawarma magic from the first Avengers. However, this freedom to experiment also led the writers to some weird ideas that did end up staying in the movie, like the decision to kill Thanos in the first 20 minutes of Endgame. We spent a couple of months going, what do we do as this guy? McFeely said. So in a moment of frustration, they decided to just freaking kill him, which turned out to be one of the biggest unexpected surprises in the entire history of the MCU. They even revealed that they may not be done with these weird thought experiments just yet. When asked if there's currently two Captain Americas coexisting in the MCU, the hero we've been following since First Avenger, and the zaddy who's been going on couples cruises with Peggy Carter, all Markus could say was, there are varying theories. I am very entertained by that theory. So are we, Markus. So are we. But what do y'all think? Is there anything you wanted to see in the Infinity Saga that got the boot? Which movie do you like more, Endgame or Infinity War? And what weird stuff do you want to see in their future films? Let's discuss. Thanks again to Borderlands 3 for sponsoring today's episode. The original shooter looter is back and bigger than ever. With 4 all-new Vault Hunters and over 1 billion guns, it's time to lock, load, and loot. Pre-order Borderlands 3 now so you can play when it drops on Xbox One, PS4, or PC on September 13th. Let's make some mayhem.